But a collaboration that's gotten the complete opposite reaction was with Skylanders, a Toys to Life series that was very popular in the early 2010s, and continues to have a small loyal fanbase, despite the franchise not receiving any significant content in years. From the initial moment that Youtooz have teased that they were making Skylanders products, the community was hyped. And when the first wave of plushies of the Skylanders version of Spyro, Gilgrunt, and Stealthwolf were released, they were met with universal love and praise, as the plushies were the first official piece of merchandise that the community had received in years, and they're also very accurate and very cute interpretations of some of the most beloved characters in gaming history. Now, aside from Gilgrunt's shipping date being delayed, the first wave of the Skylanders Youtooz had an overwhelming amount of support, that even more products were already in the works. Many were requesting that Youtooz make figures of Skylanders, and they would listen to the popular demand, as the next wave would be figurines and pins of T-Rex, Pop Fizz, and Trigger Happy. And while there was a lot of love surrounding the figures, this is where people began criticizing them, as some began questioning, why would you want to buy the Youtooz figure when the original figures had already existed for years and are cheaper than the Youtooz? Which, I think you're missing the point as to why the Skylanders Youtooz figures were so cool. Like I said, the Skylanders Youtooz were the first official piece of merchandise that we had received in years. As a fan of the franchise, why wouldn't you want to buy these figures? Even if we're never going to get another game in the franchise, these toys can help people remember the series in some small way, in a more modern and professional style. I do understand where this point comes from, I just think it's very flawed, especially since it's something that you don't need to buy anyways. Although, the criticism doesn't stop there, as it even comes from the Skylanders community. Most of the Skylanders Youtooz have been received fairly positively, including the previously mentioned first wave, Trigger Happy, Stealthwolf, Spyro, Eruptor figures and pins, and the Spyro and Cinder Valentine's Day plushie. But 5 of the Skylanders products were criticized by observant fans, who pointed out the inaccuracies or issues that they have. As first, with the T-Rex figure, his forms in the original series were mostly yellow, and only the form on the tip of his hand is lime green. But on the T-Rex Youtooz, all the forms are lime green. Then there's Pop Fizz's figure. In Skylanders, his backpack has a yellow circle with the magic element symbol on it. But on the Youtooz, this seems to be missing entirely. And to this I say, yeah, it's fair to criticize. At the end of the day, people are still paying a fair amount of money for these figures, so they should be accurate to the original designs of the characters. It might sound nitpicky, but you're paying close to $40 for one figure, so I think it's at least justified. Despite of the criticism, and Youtooz accidentally putting the wrong things on Skylanders promotional posts, like in this image they put the fire element symbol next to Trigger Happy, when he's actually in the tech element. I mean, they did eventually correct it, but come on. The second wave of the Skylanders Youtooz were still very much beloved, but for the other free products, the community weren't so kind, as the entire fourth wave were heavily criticized. Starting with Drobot's plushie, as he seemed to not have a snout. If we take a look at his original design, we can clearly see his nose is popping out of his face. But on the Youtooz, he was given more of a flat face, which was very much disappointing. I really think giving Drobot a Youtooz plushie was an interesting and an amazing choice, as he isn't really a main character in Skylanders, and everything else about his plushie was actually pretty good. But this one little detail seemed to be missed, that really hurt the plushie since it wasn't accurate to the robot dragon. With that said, this lumps in comparison to Chop Chop's plushie. Many have stated several issues, for example the colors not being the exact same as the Skylanders versions. The main issue pointed out by many is that the prototype plushie shown on the Youtooz website seemed to have the top of his helmet sewed on backwards. You see, on Chop Chop's original design, he has a slant that goes from the back of his head over to the top, and then there's pillars shooting down. But like I said, on the Youtooz plushie, this part of the helmet seemed to be placed backwards, as the slant now goes from the front of his head and being more pointy from the back of his head. To be Mr. Obvious, this is not good as it's just not accurate. With the other controversial Skylanders products, to some extent you can kind of excuse this. Look, I'm not defending them at all, but the previously mentioned issues were fairly small and only really diehard fans would notice. But with Chop Chop, yeah, this is just flat out wrong and needed to be fixed. Though, for the last controversial plushie, I'm confused as to why it's controversial, with that being Pop Fizz's plushie. Many were quick to mock it. The funniest one that I saw was from Crash to Skylands, as he called it a dog toy. But honestly, other than that, I can't really find any sort of legitimate criticism. And what I mean by that is, okay, you think the plushie's bad, how do you improve it then? The only thing I can think of was that Pop Fizz was still missing the yellow magic symbol in his backpack, but that's clearly not the reason why people had a problem with the plushie. Or at least it didn't warrant getting this much backlash. In my opinion, I think Pop Fizz's plushie is actually pretty good. A clear highlight of a wave that had a lot of problems. Now, what I believe happened is that since Pop Fizz was supposed to release alongside two heavily criticized plushies, he was lumped into the backlash because he was a part of the wave. Now, to be clear, that doesn't mean that you have to like the plushie. And who knows, maybe I'm just missing something here, but at least be fair with your criticisms, because I'm still sitting here trying to figure out what's wrong. While I have been fairly negative towards the fourth wave, there's actually some good news. While Pop Fizz's plushie would still end up releasing on June 2nd of 2026, Chop Chop and Drobot's plushies wouldn't, as Youtooz would pause the release of both plushies because of the feedback that the Skylanders community had given them. And Youtooz will be making edits towards both Chop Chop and Drobot. And as we go along with the rest of the controversies, you're gonna notice a lot that Youtooz does listen to feedback. As pointed out by Austin, this is certainly not the first time that they listen to community feedback. Like what happened to the Cruel King plushie for the Roblox game Block Tales. Despite the plushie planning to be released on July 25th of 2025, the initial design was endlessly mocked by fans, as they felt the plushie just looked ugly. And based on the feedback, Youtooz delayed the release of the plushie to September 30th of 2025 to give it a much better design, as this version of the plushie was received much more positively. Another example updating the design was with the Springtrap plushie, as the initial design was something that, in my opinion, wasn't bad per se, but Youtooz community member Spooky the Kitty made a design that universally by everyone was better than the design that Youtooz had come up with. So Youtooz saw this and reached out to Spooky the Kitty to turn their design of Springtrap into the official plushie, and it would be released on February 6th of 2024. As well, Austin did clarify that Youtooz do sometimes miss on designs, and even then that the collaborators do also have a say into what goes into the products, so sometimes the designs may also be different from what a fan wants. Regardless, the news of Drobot and Chop Chop getting updated was seen as amazing, and since then both of the fixed plushies have been revealed, with the most significant problems being fixed, such as Drobot finally having a snout, and the top of Chop Chop's helmet being fixed. They ended up releasing on July 17th of 2026, as the community had an overwhelmingly positive response about both of the fixed plushies. And even in general, despite of all the issues with some products, the Skylanders Youtooz have been seen as a positive thing not only just for the community, but also to show Skylanders owners Activision and Microsoft that the series is still very much beloved.